The radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 115, recorded on Friday, February 23rd from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we look at the history of Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party. But first, the headlines.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Up first in headlines.
The governor doesn't listen to us.
He's not one of our loyal fans.
Although, to be fair, it did happen before our episode came out, so maybe that was it, if we were a little bit faster on the draw.
Oh, so you're saying it's your fault because you edited the video.
I think if you look at the record, you will find that my editing was done on Sunday, and for some reason it wasn't released until Tuesday. So that's not exactly my fault.
Damn it, I played the game, and I got played. I tried coming with facts and logics, and they came for me. But anyway, yes, Governor Tony Evers of Wisconsin officially signed his maps that we talked about last week, finally ending the Republican Party gerrymander for over a decade.
Yes, overall, even though we thought it would be better to let it play out in the state Supreme Court, let them choose a map, which is probably even more favoring the Democratic Party, and let the Republicans whine and complain and take their lawsuit to the Supreme Court again. But at least it is now over and done with. We will have new maps for the November election.
Well, and okay, here's the thing. I'm wary, but also happy. Does that make sense? Because I am, just in the end, I think we should also, for those who are like kind of playing the insider baseball here and are upset that the governor didn't veto the maps, at the end of the day, this is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to pretend that it's not a good thing. Yes, it could have been a little bit better, but it's still a good thing. The other good news is, if you want to be really into it from a like objective standpoint, again, not from a political standpoint, this is how you technically want maps to pass. You don't want them passing through the courts like this. You want them going through a legislative process and having the governor sign them. So, okay, I guess you could say that too. Whatever. And then finally, Republicans are still going to Republican. And all of them, including Robin Vos and a bunch of other influencers on the Republican side, are still calling the maps gerrymandered. And that this is a partisan gerrymander. And I think a good way that we have for these maps is, one, Tony Evers has now a better chance of communicating the fairness of these maps, saying that we actually have delivered, as opposed to just saying a court chose for us. But then on top of that, it's the easiest way to debunk the claim that this is a gerrymandered map, since it's still a Republican-leaning map. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind. Like, we have now much fairer maps than we do. But overall, as a state, there is still a 3-point lean towards Republicans in this party. I think overall, we're looking at closer to like a 5 or so seat margin between Republicans and Democrats, with Republicans still taking the majority, which is way better than what it was before. But it's still probably going to lead to Robin Vos being the Speaker of the Assembly.
Right. It may not be as big of a win as we wanted, and we could have potentially gotten through the state Supreme Court. But realistically, all we ever wanted were fairer maps, and that's what we got.
Yep. And it caused chaos for Republicans. Like, a bunch of them are all drawn into the same district, and a bunch of them have to move. And that sucks for them. And it also makes me happy. So, okay, fine. I'll do the thing. We got fair maps. Good job, Tony. All right. On to much sadder news. Putin's main challenger over the last several years, Alexei Navalny, has been officially declared dead in an Arctic prison. For those of you who don't know, on February 16th, Russia's Federal Penitentiary Service reported that Putin's biggest challenger, Alexei Navalny, died due to various complications. Quote from the report.
Various complications.
Quote from the report. On February 16, 2024, in Penal Colony Number 3, convict Navalny AA felt unwell after a walk, almost immediately losing consciousness. All necessary resuscitation measures were carried out, which did not give positive results. Doctors of the ambulance stated the death of the convict. The causes of death are being established. And since then, they have been saying that, I can't remember what it was. It was like sudden death syndrome or something like that. I think that's what they're pushing right now.
Post-infant death syndrome.
So, well, this ain't suspect as hell, huh?
At least his plane didn't crash mysteriously.
from a bomb that was on the plane.
Or a missile that was fired.
I mean,
at the
okay,
plane.
let's be real here. And I liked how some of other podcasters put it. I don't know, and we may never know the actual truth of what killed Alexei Navalny. It's even more suspect that the day before he was showing up virtually for a court appearance, and he was shown happy and joking and seemed in perfectly good health. Reports with family members for him say that he was perfectly fine beforehand, although there are other reports that show that he had some kind of stomach illness the entire time he's been there. And keep in mind, in these Russian prisons, they're not super sanitary and in great shape either.
And he did survive a previous poisoning attempt.
But I will say, no matter what happens, we have to still treat it as Putin killed Navalny, no matter what.
Yes.
Whether it's he killed him directly through this, or he killed him through just constantly just beating this guy down to the point of death.
Sentencing him to this prison.
Right. For what? It's a political crime. That's what it is. Like,
as all the Republicans in the audience know, it's the exact same thing we're doing to Donald Trump, right?
well, hey.
And Trump did compare himself.
I was going to say, that's why Trump compared himself and called him the United States' Alexei Navalny.
Right.
So, if you guys don't remember, Navalny courageously went back to Russia knowing that he was going to be arrested on the spot, which is what happened. So, it just really sucks to see, sucks to hear. Lots of people who are Alexei Navalny supporters are very, very distraught about it, but then at the same time cannot speak about it because also the police are arresting any protesters who are pro-Navalny supporters. So, cool. This is the guy in the government that Tucker Carlson did a whole segment with recently. Did you see that?
Yes.
And talked about how great their grocery stores were.
They have such great bread.
Oh my God. Did you see that face he made when he looked at the bread?
He was very into it. He was going to fuck that bread.
He was going to fuck that bread, man. So drink for an Alexei Navalny, true Russian hero.
Do svidaniya.
I don't know what that means, but sure.
Goodbye.
Oh, I was going to say like kill Whitey or something like that. I don't know.
Next up, we have an update on a previous episode, two-part episode, What Will Happen If Trump Wins in 2024?
This comes from a recent Politico article that focused on a conservative think tank, the Center for Renewing America, specifically Russell Vought, who is leading the effort of the PAC and also advised the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. So if you remember that, this is the same guy we're dealing with. According to documents obtained by Politico, the Center for Renewing America laid out several goals they want to attain for the 2025 election, or whoever, I guess, when a Republican wins an election, I guess you can say. And one of those bullet points was just literally, in quote, Christian nationalism. That's it. There was no actual detail about it, but it was just listed as one of the main priorities for the organization. Others included invoking the Insurrection Act on day one to quash protests and refusing to spend authorized congressional funds on unwanted projects, a practice banned by lawmakers in the Nixon era. So, you know, the real institutionalists that we know and love here in the Republican Party. And like I said before, while the documents don't give any specific objectives about what Christian nationalism means as a goal, Politico found that Vaught has expressed extreme Christian nationalist beliefs in the past, including saying a person's background doesn't define who can enter the U.S., but rather citing biblical teachings, whether the person, quote, accepted Israel's God, laws, and understanding of history.
Whether or not they will kill their firstborn child.
Yeah, you know, real Old Testament, like, you know, got to really fulfill that old law.
And also, the New York Times has reported that Trump has privately supported a federal 16-week abortion ban.
Yes, he has.
And this is Trump trying to balance a conservative desire for a federal abortion ban and the overwhelmingly negative reaction to such a ban by the larger majority of the public.
Well, and this is where I think we probably gave Trump credit before, too, where he was like one of the only Republican candidates on the correct-ish side of the issue, where he's not even, he doesn't care about abortion. Let's be real here, right? He has no actual beliefs. He just wants to
other than
power.
The fact that he should be allowed to get one for someone that he impregnates.
Right. But at least politically, he was like one of the only candidates that understood that this was a terrible issue to run on as a Republican.
Right. He understands populism.
Yes. Except now he's getting pushed on it. So I'm curious to see what he's going to end up trying to do in the long run, especially now that Republicans are going to focus hard, because we know, like, I don't want to say we have to use abortion as an issue for the campaign, but let's be real. We should be campaigning on abortion more than anything else. It's worked so well for us so far.
One of the few issues that the Democratic Party is on the right side of for the most part.
And we'll have another story coming coming up real soon about why it's freaking absurd about their positioning in just a little bit. But Trump is correct. The large majority of Americans do not want restrictions on abortion. So I'm truly curious about how he's going to try to thread this needle about, I don't know, like maybe once he has the nomination locked up, he's going to say screw you to Christian conservatives. I don't know what he's going to do.
Well, I think the thought is this 16 weeks, only 4% of abortions are performed after 16 weeks. So it is more popular than the like 6-week, 8-week bans that have been being passed in Republican states.
Correct.
The big problem is that those 4% of abortions that are performed after 16 weeks,
they're not elective.
Yeah, most of them are due to medical complications.
And that's been in the argument we've been making since a lot of states started passing 15-week abortion bans like years ago.
Including that's what led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
So passing a 16-week ban, federal ban for the entire nation, is going to lead to the deaths of women who were never going to have a viable pregnancy.
Correct.
And instead of having to make that decision with their doctor and their family, now they're going to have to make it with the court. It's going to lead to all sorts of problems like we saw in Texas, where and where are you going to go? In Texas, she had to go to a different state to get the medically necessary abortion. With a federal ban, you were going to have to go to the back alley, to Dr. Nick, and risk your life, which is the very thing Roe v. Wade was decided to protect against. And that's horrible and it's barbaric. And even if it seems like, oh, geez, 16 weeks, that's pretty far out, we really, most of the time, you shouldn't be having an abortion beyond that date. You're not a doctor and you're not in that position.
Right. And it's also worth noting, too, that even if people think that a 16-week ban on abortion isn't that big of a deal, you have to remember that this would not codify the right to an abortion up to 16 weeks. They would be more than happy letting states enact harsher bans still and keep those bans in place. So you're going to have literally what you would have now, but then in places where women can get abortions past 16 weeks, they will no longer have that access. So that's the reason why we have to really make sure we have Democrats elected in the Senate, enough Democrats to take back the House and to have a Democratic president so we can get abortion rights enshrined into law. Anything else is just a smokescreen or just a straight up horrible idea.
Speaking of horrible ideas.
That's right. Alabama State Supreme Court has officially ruled that frozen embryos are children. Why? Because the Bible. And I wish I was kidding. For a little background on this story, for those of you who don't know, this case was brought up by 3 couples who had IVF or in vitro fertilization treatments done at a local fertility clinic run by the Center of Reproductive Medicine and stored at a local cryogenic nursery at a nearby hospital.
That is a mouthful.
Yes. According to the story, in 2020, a patient at the hospital wandered into the nursery, started to pick up the cases containing these embryos, quote, freeze burned his hand because obviously they're really cold, and dropped the embryo cases, thus killing the embryos and completely damaging everything else. Now, I don't know about you, Jason.
As a patient, like I don't usually wander around and start moving boxes.
And usually you'd think that would be kind of secured, but it wasn't. And I don't know about you, Jason, but the craziness aside, I can understand the need to have some kind of seeking of damages for complete malpractice of these embryos.
Mike Johnson, I'll tell you, the Bible does not provide protections under 5 years old.
When's the Catholic age of enlightenment? Is that 7? Anyway, however, the Alabama Supreme Court went far beyond the seeking of damages and officially declared that the frozen embryos are in fact children by definition under the law and can be classified under the Wrongful Death of a Minor Act. The justices relied on an 1872 Alabama law that stated protection, quote, applies to all unborn children regardless of their location. Justice J. Mitchell wrote, unborn children are children without exception based on developmental stage, physical location, or any ancillary characteristics. Thank you, Justice Mitchell. And the idea that people of the 1800s were thinking about
in vitro fertilization,
literally about embryos and IVF,
frozen fertilization fertilized eggs
is something to be considering for today in 2024 is absolutely insane. And actually, that's what Justice Greg Cook, who's also a hardcore Republican, by the way, the only dissenter and apparently the only actual originalist in this case, because he argued that people of 1872 had no clue what embryos were, and that particular law doesn't actually define what a minor child is, and that it was a huge stretch for the other justices to even claim that this law even applies in this particular case. And to make things worse, Chief Justice Tom Parker cited Christianity and the Bible throughout his entire concurrence as his main source of reasoning. Here's a quote from his concurrence. In summary, the theologically based view of the sanctity of life, which I have also, by the way, saved you, Jason, of the multiple pages of citations that I was going to include in this because I was so angry reading it.
I don't know what Bible this guy's reading, but it ain't in there.
Well, I'll give you even a better hint. He cites specifically the King James Bible to make it sound more old-timey. The sanctity of life adopted by the people of Alabama encompasses the following. Number 1, God made every person in his image. Number 2, each person therefore has a value that far exceeds the ability of human beings to calculate. And number 3, human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God who views the destruction of his image as an affront to himself. Something you clearly want one of the most powerful people in the nation to be saying while controlling the lives of other people. And since the ruling, multiple IVF clinics have now paused on all treatment out of fear of violating the law.
Yeah, why would they? If anything goes wrong, if any of those stored fetuses are non-viable because of anything.
Well, also, that's just like a misunderstanding of what IVF even is as a procedure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you implant usually one of the fetuses, they're fertilized
Embryos.
You usually implant one of them, and then you destroy the rest. Well, if they're all now children, that's murder.
Literally, that's murder. You are murdering tons and tons of children.
Yep.
And the fact that this is all literally, according to this Chief Justice, who's not even hiding or pretending to hide it, all biblically based, scares the living hell out of me. That this is how we are conducting, I guess you could say, like legit interpretations of the law in our country by real freaking adults, man.
And, of course, the writers of those passages, whatever he's using in the Bible, knew exactly what in vitro fertilization is.
Oh, absolutely. So stupid, man. And people are going to pay dearly for this because now you have women in the process in Alabama who now cannot continue with their procedures. And you have women who want to have children now and can't because of this law.
Time to move.
Real pro-life stuff over here, And in good news. Let's talk about Trump, which is usually not good news, but I am going to say it is anyway. Trump has found himself in a little bit of trouble lately, where he now has recently lost his New York fraud case and has now been ordered to pay $464 million as a result of that case. For those who can't keep track of all the cases against Trump, this is the one brought up by New York Attorney General Letitia James because Trump was manipulating his net worth by overestimating the value of his properties and assets in New York.
The biased and corrupt Letitia James.
And we talked about this story when it came out.
In the Democrat state of New York.
Keep going. I want you to keep getting bigger.
The witch hunt conducted by Joe Biden, who stole the election, run by the deep state.
Who's run by mole people?
And the reptilians.
Lizard aliens or something.
Yeah, interdimensional beings.
Now I need my hat back.
Who always crash land when they come there.
So the court ruled that Trump now has to pay a penalty of $355 million, and with about $100 million of interest, that comes out to $464 million in total. Don Jr. and Eric Trump are also required to pay penalties of nearly $5 million each.
And their dad ain't helping him with that.
No.
That's really going to cut into Don Jr.'s Coke money.
Also part of the ruling, Trump has been banned for 3 years from serving in a top role at any New York company or seeking loans from banks registered in the state. His sons have been banned for the same thing for 2 years. And just for a little cherry on top, I also had to put in here, in the ruling, the judge said the defendant's, quote, complete lack of contrition and remorse borders on pathological.
I would say it more than borders. Well established and living in pathological.
Well, because I mean, Trump's conduct in this case has almost been the exact same as any other we've seen over the last couple of months now, where he just acts like a freaking 5-year-old and just whines and has tantrums the entire time to the detriment of the entire court.
It does make you wonder how he's evaded all of these kinds of court cases all this time.
No kidding. And I'm going to be honest, man, like $464 million is a lot of money.
Especially for someone who's not really a billionaire.
And especially for someone who's also trying to spend another $500 million, we'll say, running for president. Because keep in mind, what he has to pay now is more than what he spent or what his whole campaign spent in 2016.
Well, don't worry. He's got a GoFundMe and he's selling $400 ugly ass sneakers.
Have you seen those things?
Oh, yes.
The gold, whatever. I don't know what
the
actually...
Jail Force ones.
I like that. That's a good one. And breaking news from earlier today, just before this recording, the Wisconsin Ethics Commission found probable cause that Trump's Save America PAC, along with State Rep Janelle Branchin, local Republican Party officials, and candidate Adam Steen committed felonies in an effort to skirt campaign finance law during Steen's 2022 primary challenge to State Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. And I think we kind of previously covered that back when it was happening. For those who remember, like a lot of the Stop the Steal candidates was trying to take over in primary Republicans in our state at the time.
Robin Vos is basically Mitch McConnell of Wisconsin. Like,
right.
He's horrible, the worst kind of person.
But not a Stop the Steal crazy.
Right, but he's not a mega Trump guy.
Right, and Republicans hated that, so they tried to primary him. And actually, for a quick background relevant to Wisconsin's campaign finance laws for at least this story, in Wisconsin, donors can only give $1,000 to assembly candidates in the state. However, donors can also give unlimited funds to county and state parties. So what these people did, through a coordinated effort, the Save America PAC and others I previously mentioned, funneled money through local county Republican parties to Adam Steen's campaign to primary Robin Vos for more than $40,000. Save America PAC was shown to give $5,000 to the Republican parties of Chippewa, Florence, and Langley counties, and donations were made with 63 in the memo, which is Vos's district. The commission also looked into a $4,000 donation from MyPillow's Mike Lindell for one of the county parties, but they didn't find sufficient evidence since, I don't know, he was too stupid to even get caught for this. The good news is, though, that local district attorneys have 60 days to investigate and announce any potential charges, and if they don't act in that time, the commission will have the authority to request prosecution from the Attorney General, Josh Call. And Jason, the reason I wanted to talk about this story as well is, in addition to the other chaos and other court battles that Trump is facing right now, this is such a stupid thing to do. And to have more potential felony charges against you for. Like, at the end of the day, yes, $40,000 is a lot of money, but dude, like in the grand scheme of things, $40,000 is not much for a national campaign, and they're going to end up facing felony charges because of it.
And it wasn't even that close.
No, it was.
Like all that money and all that conniving and everything.
Vos still won.
Yeah, easily.
Oh, they're so stupid. They're so dumb. So I guess that's a good thing for Joe Biden, where at least you have so many problems on the Trump campaign side that who knows how much money they're going to have by the time the general election rolls around.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy ain't right.
This week in Fox in the Head, you're wondering why I didn't really talk a whole heck of a lot during the headlines section. It's because I spent most of my time researching this topic. I am
the real issues that matter to you. That's the
right.
That's the real thing.
I am a huge X-Men fan. I collected X-Men comics in the 90s at the time that everyone in the world also collected X-Men comics. I was 12 years old when the X-Men animated series came out. This was my jam.
So, who is your favorite X-Men and why is it Cyclops?
It is Cyclops.
Oh, look at that. Hey!
Probably my defense of Superman tipped my hand there. Because they're kind of similar characters.
You're not a Nightcrawler fan?
No, the priest of the X-Men constantly preaching at everyone about praying.
The Beast.
Kurt Wagner.
Blue Beast. What's the Beast name? The big guy.
It's Beast.
It's Beast?
Yeah.
Oh, see?
Or I was like, you mean Dr. Henry Hank
Dr. Beast.
McCoy?
Yes.
Is that who you're talking about?
Dr. Beast. Mr. Beast. He's a YouTuber now.
Yeah, he's real popular.
It's real popular.
The kids love him.
Yeah.
But why are we talking about the X-Men? Because apparently, Joe,
Okay.
the X-Men are woke now?
They are.
So Disney announced that with Marvel Animation Studios, they are releasing an animated X-Men show on Disney Plus on March 20th.
Okay.
That is a direct continuation of the Fox series that aired from 1992 to 1997, named X-Men 97.
Okay. And actually, I'm really glad you brought this story up because I saw so many news stories about this and so many posts on social media about this. I did not care enough to look into it. I did not have the bandwidth to deal with this because I'm not a big X-Men fan. So thank you for bringing this and explaining this to me because as a non-X-Men fan.
Yeah, you're going to get to hear all about it.
Oh, great.
So the trailer released recently, and that along with a recent interview with Empire Magazine in which the showrunner Bo DeMeo said that their interpretation of the character Morph,
Who the hell's Morph?
we'll get to it,
Okay.
would be, quote, a lighter take on the character who is non-binary.
Oh, shit. They're pretty woke.
That has sparked a reactionary outrage among the anti-woke, who are all obviously hardcore X-Men fans, but they don't seem to know anything at all about the franchise. So I have prepared an audio montage, and I really had to edit on this. I had to whittle it down. I had more. I took out even some of the bigger names, like the Quartering was in here.
Oh, no.
Actual Justice Warrior.
Oh, no.
I got it down to just giving you the minimum amount so you at least understand what they're complaining about.
All right. I'm sure these are going to be very rational takes from very rational people.
So here you
and
go.
I'm sure it's a very diverse group of people as well. Not all white men. That'd be crazy.
It is not all white men. I did find one woman. One white woman.
You are already.
I am inclusive.
You are already way more diverse than Jordan Pearson's fan base.
Morph's characterization in X-Men 97. This is a lighter take on the character who is non-binary and has an interesting buddy relationship with Wolverine. You know what that means? It's going to get gay.
And it's more than just the stuff with Morph. That was the big thing yesterday that just really kind of confirmed that, this show is going to go down a weird path. This is not Rogue. I'm sorry. And this isn't just one scene of the trailer. The entire trailer, she looks like this. She has the uni boob. She looks like she has chests, like pecs, like a man, like a Dragon Ball character. It's wild to see because this is what she used to look like. So why is it so flat? Okay, all feminine aspects of these characters have been removed.
Once again, we can't have nice things. Not today, not in current modern day, as the X-Men 97 trailer released, and upon first glance, hey, it looks pretty good, right? Not bad. Well, as we dig deeper, of course, the woke ideology seeps itself into this as they even make Morph non-binary. That fake gender that just recently sprouted up.
Rogues. Absolutely ass-tastic character is gone. That's right. They're rebooting the 97 X-Men, and they are androgenizing every female character, on top of making some non-binary. I'm going to do my best not to rage out on this.
Okay, so hang on.
As we do our best not to rage out on this.
Right. I also love the fact that, I don't know, I couldn't identify any of these people, man, so I apologize. But as the woman said, oh yeah, I mean, on first glance, it looks really good, right? But then if you look deeper into it, they have their woke ideology. I'm like, okay, cool.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so by your own admission, you are literally looking and hunting for things just to be mad about.
Yes.
That's what you're upset about right now.
I have to get the clicks.
You're right. Isn't that supposed to be directly contradictory to their whole ideology with being an anti-woke person? Because the idea of being anti-woke is that these liberal cucks are just throwing this in our face and we can't avoid it no matter what's happening. But you couldn't even see it upon first glance. You had to find someone raging about it and then get raged with them.
You had to read about someone talking about an
interview
in a magazine.
Right.
And I couldn't find any primary sources because you you have to buy the magazine, which no one does these days.
Right.
So all you get are reviews from people who said they've read it.
Right.
We'll take these one at a time here. First, let's start with Morph or Changeling, and what is the controversy there? What is the history? Okay.
Also, they said rogue.
Right. That's a separate. We'll get to that in a minute.
So these are two things.
These are two separate things.
Oh,
you have
okay.
the non-binary character of Morph.
Okay.
And then you have the complete destruction of all of the female characters.
The androgenification of the female characters.
Which basically boils down to, one, I didn't see dad ass on Rogue, and Storm has the mohawk haircut, which she has had multiple times over the years, and I think does currently in the X-Men comics.
Oh, but people are used to like the long flowing white hair.
Right,
Storm.
so they changed it from the anime, when it ended, at least from what we've seen in the trailer. I'm sure they might actually explain what happened there, but she has, again, like, if you're an X-Men fan, you know, consistently Storm has had that haircut. She's had it in one of the movies, again, like I said, multiple times.
Sure.
In the history of the show. So, but apparently everyone is calling it like the SJW haircut.
Cool.
I don't know why, and then, like I said, with Rogue, we'll get to that one after Morph, but let's start with Morph.
All right, cool. Educate me on Morph.
Who or what is Morph? Morph was a character created specifically for the animated series in 1992. So they needed a character that they were going to kill off early on in order to show like that there was consequences.
Sure.
That this was real and serious and characters could die.
This is gritty.
Right. So they wanted to kill off a character in the first episode.
Sure.
It was originally supposed to be Thunderbird.
Okay.
That is John Proudstar. It's a Native American character who was killed off early on in the comic books. Executives at Fox did not like the idea of killing off the show's only Native American character in the first episode.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. That was my first thought.
Right. So for all these people claiming to be anti-woke and that they love Morph, I'm sorry, Morph was a product of 90s PC culture.
Oh, dang.
So they had to find a different character to use as like the sacrificial character, and Changeling was chosen as a replacement. He was only in a couple of issues in the X-Men comic in the late 60s as a villain who was then retconned or changed after the fact into having found out he had terminal cancer.
Oh, Jesus.
And as an act of contrition with the little time he had remaining, posed as Professor X. Basically, they killed off Professor X in issue number 42. They said, this is not a hoax, this is for real, Professor X is dead. Issue number 42. Then, 2 years later, they said, oh, actually, it was this character Changeling who was in like 2 issues earlier on who could change shape. And he was posing as Professor X.
And then died.
Yeah, and died. And it wasn't Professor X who died, it was Changeling.
You cowards.
That was the entire history of this character that to base off of for the cartoon.
Okay.
He had almost no dialogue and appeared in only a few panels. They used that same character, but they changed the name to Morph because they could not use the Changeling name because there's a DC Comics character that uses the same name. You may know him as Beast Boy from the Teen Titans.
Oh, hell yeah. I love Beast Boy.
He used the name Changeling for a while in the comics.
Beast Boy's better.
So Morph died in the first episode of the cartoon. He was supposed to stay dead, but
then we found out that it was Professor X who was posing as Morph.
But because they had made him the comic relief character
for an episode,
yeah, the episode that he was in, which is very brief, but he was like the haha, I got jokes character, always, the wisecracking guy.
Okay,
he became a favorite of younger children who had no prior X-Men exposure. They didn't know who the X-Men were. They didn't know that there was never anyone named Morph.
Sure.
So that they loved the Morph guy.
Because it's just a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So because of that, Fox executives, upon renewing the X-Men cartoon for season 2, said that one of the conditions was that they had to bring back Morph. So again, this is all studio meddling, right? If you hate studio meddling, you should hate Morph. Morph was supposed to stayed dead. Morph was then revealed to have been saved by Mr. Sinister, who turned him evil. He came back briefly and had severe PTSD because he basically died, and was consistently shelved so that he could go off and seek treatment on Muir Island. Kind of seems like a beta male to me.
Well,
I don't know.
This also seems like he's not even that important of a character.
He's not.
Why are we all upset about this guy?
He was only in a couple episodes. He did come back at the very, very end of the show. I've been rewatching the series. I don't know if
for research purposes.
Oh, this was before this because it's coming back. I don't know if I ever really watched to the very end of the show. By the end of the show, I was like 17 years old. I wasn't really watching.
You're too old for
yeah. I had aged out of watching.
But now you're even older. Now
it's now cool I'm back
again.
Into it.
It's
yes.
cool again. Yeah.
Yeah. No one's gonna make fun of me anymore for watching it.
So you feel comfortable enough to broadcast this to a potentially national audience?
Sure, international, Joe.
Oh,
We've
man,
got listeners all around the world.
Oh man, you are brave.
So that's the story of Morph. And by the way, no one is mentioning. Everyone's like, oh, they're making him non-binary. They're making him non-binary. Again, he can change his shape physically between man and woman at will.
Well, who cares? He's gonna die anyway, so why does it matter? He's already. Oh no, he's back.
They're
now.
continuing from
continuing.
Yes,
it's not a remake.
So now he will be part of the cast. They've changed his appearance from what it was in the show to match the subsequent comics that have come out after this, where there was another Morph character who looked more like an alien silly putty person rather than a man or a woman.
Can you? I know this is an audio medium, but can you describe or show me a picture so I know what we're talking about here? And I'll be the judge if this is terrible, horrible thing to change Morph this way.
So this is what he looks like now.
That's just Voldemort.
It does look, he looks a little Voldemort-y. There was a big event called Age of Apocalypse, where as like a gag or whatever, like they made Morph a character there, but they gave him a redesign where he looks more like Voldemort. And that character also appeared in the Exiles comics, which were very good, by the way.
So at first glance, man, if there was ever a character that was, I would consider non-binary, that would have been that character.
So no one's complaining.
He is literally, and I have to say this, like, because again, you can't see it, a bald white man, and not white as in like race white, like he is like the color white of a man. He's like a silhouette of a dude. Like I could not imagine a more non-binary character than a bald white silhouette who looks like a mannequin.
So no one is complaining that they gave him the character design from the Age of Apocalypse and Exiles, the Play-Doh alien look, but they're complaining that they changed him to non-binary because that's what's important to them, is what pronouns he uses.
Well, especially because of that one episode where he was like a typical white guy. They took their identity away, man.
Right?
Like
their favorite character, Morph, who has such a storied history.
Well, again, because Jason, you have to understand the reason why we put people of color into shows is so that people of color can identify and relate to those characters. We took a beloved cis white male character away from these hopeful, young, full of love, totally not going to show up at school young white guys.
So that is the entire controversy of Morph.
Okay, so he turned a white guy into a Play-Doh man, but it's the fact that he uses they-them pronouns is the issue.
Right.
Got
and
it.
we don't even know.
Good start to the segment.
Right. We went over Storm and her haircut. The other main issue, and I swear, if you look any of these videos up, 99% of them have as their thumbnail this image of Rogue's ass from the original cartoon.
Okay.
So the entire craze around Rogue's posterior comes from a 3-second scene from season 1, episode 10, which I swear to you is titled "Come the Apocalypse." That has become an internet meme, and they're comparing that single image against a single frame taken from the X-Men 97 trailer.
And you've posted a side-by-side for me.
Right, so we have those two images here for Joe, so he can
I see the
them.
booty.
Yes, and it is quite nice. No argument.
I'm going to be honest. So wait, hold on. Was it always like that?
Well, here you go. So was it always like that? Because
that seems like an illustrator was like a little bit overzealous.
Right. So I've got 4 images that I took from that same episode.
She's got a Kim Kardashian butt, you guys. Like, that's what it looks like right now.
So from season 1, episode 10, 4 different scenes, all showing Rogue from behind, and it's not anything like the one image everyone posts. In fact, in this last one, where she's fighting with Archangel has a nicer ass than Rogue does.
Oh no!
So they're basically just putting.
Why did they give her such a big butt in that one scene?
It's part of it is like just the way the angle that it's at. But somebody had fun with this one.
No
for sure.
kidding. Oh,
and I would even say it's kind of in line with the comic books, where sometimes you get those shots just out of nowhere, but it's not always like that, and it varies wildly between issues and
different artists,
right? And that's seemingly the way this was as well. But it's like everyone just fetishizes this one image.
Okay, dude, this screams the Lola Bunny incident. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Where everyone was like,
Jam.
yeah, when Space Jam,
or She-Ra.
Yeah, but like,
or the Eminem, the intro to this segment, the Eminem character.
Where it's like, man, you are way too focused on these like sexual characteristics of
fictional animated
characters, sometimes not even human. Like, we need to talk about that.
So, yes, this is silly. It's ridiculous. I don't know why everyone's going so crazy about these things, but
you can't have nice things anymore. That's what I heard in that montage.
Yeah. The bigger issue to me, and the reason why I spent so much time doing this, it's a bigger fight.
It's a bigger fight.
Where, it's not just about these little things. To me, when you call the X-Men woke, and you're complaining that Disney made them woke, the X-Men have always been about progressive values and overcoming hatred and bigotry in the world.
Well, because now again, as a non-X-Men fan, am I wrong to say that the whole premise of the series was that you had mutants who everybody hated, despised, threatened or killed, and Professor Xavier took them in?
Right, because of how they were born, the characteristics they were born at that they have no control over.
Right, so they literally have to overcome bigotry.
Yes.
And then, like, even them as heroes still have issues because people still hate them because they're mutants.
Correct.
See, as a non-X-Men, I don't even follow the damn series, Jason, and I know that.
So there are obvious connections with the civil rights movement. The comic was created in 1963.
Okay.
The original team, consisting of 5 white heroes, when there were already other teams out there like the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, which the Avengers comic came out like almost exactly the same time as the X-Men, but had established heroes like Captain America and Thor and Iron Man in it. The X-Men just did not sell well. The comic was actually canceled for 5 years between 1970 and 1975. It was not until the DEI multi-culti team of Storm, a Kenyan weather goddess, Wolverine, a dirty Canadian, Colossus, a communist from Russia, Nightcrawler from Germany, Sunfire from Japan, Banshee from Ireland, and the Native American Thunderbird that we talked about previously.
Who's just fodder.
When they were introduced as a team in Giant Size X-Men #1, that this series actually became popular and became a bestseller. So as times have changed, the X-Men have begun to stand in for the gay rights movement in the 80s and 90s. And because of that, almost all of Marvel's early LGBT characters came from X-related titles. The first gay Marvel character, Northstar, is from Alpha Flight, which is basically the Canadian X-Men. You had a gay relationship between Richter and Shatterstar. They're from X-Force originally. I believe that was in X-Factor that they had a relationship, but you get the idea. We had Mystique, the other shape changer that's very well known from Marvel, and Destiny, who were also in a lesbian relationship, sort of, because they've always been playing around with this idea that shapeshifters are gender fluid. Canonically, Mystique is Nightcrawler's dad, and Destiny is Nightcrawler's mother.
Okay.
And even Iceman, one of the original 5 X-Men, has come out as gay. There's even the line from Iceman's mom in the movie X2, have you tried not being a mutant? They were never trying to hide the fact that that is exactly what the X-Men stand for. The central theme of the X-Men has always been, what is the best way to achieve the progressive goal of equality? Is it Professor X's peaceful method of cooperation and coexistence, or Magneto's violent revolution to bring the world to heel? Conservatism and bigotry are shown as mere sideshows through groups like the Friends of Humanity and the Purifiers. They are just hateful villains who always lose and are always left behind in the end. Those that are pushing their bigotry as some sort of comic book originalism have been quick to bring up an interview from Coast to Coast AM that Stan Lee did in 2007, in which he said he did not consciously make the X-Men an allegory for oppressed minorities. He just wanted to give them a handicap to overcome and something to fight against. He didn't say that that's not what it is. He said, I did it. I made them an allegory for civil rights. I just didn't do it consciously.
Yeah, he just didn't do it intentionally.
Right. It was when everyone started to tell him how he made such a great allegory for the civil rights movement that it dawned on him. He also said making them a stand-in for homosexuality didn't even cross his mind. Because, yeah, it didn't in the 60s.
Right.
Now it is. But if you think that means that Stan Lee would be on your side in not wanting modern social progress to influence his characters, we will end this overly long segment
this roller coaster of a comic book rant
with a message from Stan Lee himself.
Ooh.
Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know, Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world right outside our window. That world may change and evolve, but the one thing that will never change is the way we tell our stories of heroism. Those stories have room for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or color of their skin. The only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry.
You get him, Stan. Hell yeah.
So
I love Stan Lee.
All these people pushing back and saying that the X-Men were never woke, eat shit.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
And for our final week of celebrating and recognizing Black History Month, we want to look into the history of the most well-known Black movement groups in the entire country, the Black Panthers, and one of the most famous Black Panthers, Fred Hampton.
So we're going to start off with just a real light background on the Black Panther Party. It's not in-depth in any way, but just to kind of give you some idea. It was founded in 1966 by Bobby Seale and Huey Newton as the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in Oakland, California, following the murder of unarmed black teen Matthew Johnson by San Francisco police. They established neighborhood patrols and sought to protect residents against police brutality. The group then began evolving into a Marxist revolutionary movement seeking to liberate Black Americans. They created the 10-point program, and I'm just going to give you the 10 points, briefly. There are actually, explanations as to the reasonings behind each point, but it makes it way too long to read to you. We'll link the document where you can view the entire thing if you'd want to. Point 1, we want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our Black community. We believe that Black people will not be free until we are able to determine our destiny.
That sounds good to me so far.
Point 2, we want full employment for our people.
Okay.
3, we want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our Black community.
Yeah, get them.
4, we want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings.
Not opposed to any of these so far.
5, we want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. We want education that teaches us our true history and our role in the present-day society.
Okay, see, now you're getting into all the CRT stuff.
CRT.
And I'm not for this.
6, we want all black men to be exempt from military service.
What?
Why should they have to serve a country that does not serve them?
Okay, that makes more. Sorry, I'm looking at it from my so like, wait a minute.
7, we want an immediate end to police brutality and the murder of black people. Very reasonable.
Yep.
But might I say, all lives matter? 8, we want freedom for all black men held in federal, state, county, and city prisons and jails. The reasoning behind that was that they are never given a fair trial.
Well, I'll say, remember, this for context, this is the 1960s.
I think the reasoning is they were never given, per the Constitution, they were never given a trial by their peers.
Yeah.
10, we want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. All horrible things. Militant.
That's pretty bad, man. I don't know.
Racist organization.
Anti-American.
In addition for fighting for political and economic equality, the Black Panther Party became known for providing access to medical clinics and free breakfast programs for children. The message and movement of the Black Panther Party began spreading across the country, with chapters opening up in multiple major cities.
And that's what brings us to Fred Hampton. Hampton was born on August 30th, 1948 in Chicago, Illinois. Hampton's family was actually good friends with Emmett Till, which you may be aware of already, because Fred's sister Iberia would babysit him. And then after Emmett Till's lynching, Fred Hampton became radicalized and became way more aware of racial justice activism. While in high school, Hampton started a student section of the NAACP and served on the school's interracial cross-section committee, which helped white students confront their racist beliefs.
And I believe he held a boycott of his school for not allowing black girls to be nominated to be homecoming queen.
That's dope.
So he was definitely an activist from an early age.
In the summer of 1967, while in college, Hampton led and participated in several rallies demanding the city of Maywood to construct a racially integrated public swimming pool. In the meantime, while there were still segregated swimming pools, he would organize trips for black children to go to the nearest integrated pool about 5 miles away. He was also arrested during one of these protests for disorderly conduct after the protest turned violent with local police. Although there are many speculations about who started that violence and what actually ended up happening during that potential riot. However, these rallies eventually achieved their goal, and after Hampton's death, which we'll talk about later, the village board of Maywood named it the Fred Hampton Aquatic Center, which is what it's still called today. So I thought that was just a fun little side note that you should probably all know about Fred Hampton's story. Again, real activist from a young age, has been consistent in his beliefs and fight for racial equality, and has made real strides for helping black children all throughout his community. In 1968, though, Hampton joined the Black Panther Party as one of the Illinois chapter's founding members, along with Bobby Rush. Under Hampton's leadership, the chapter launched community service programs including a free medical clinic and a free breakfast program for children. Fun fact about the free breakfast program, it actually served as an inspiration for the USDA's expansion of its own free breakfast program and the creation of the National School Breakfast Program in 1975. But of course, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover hated the idea that came from the Black Panthers, those black Marxist commies. Hampton also founded the Rainbow Coalition, an organization that included the local chapter of the Black Panther Party, the Puerto Rican group Young Lords, and the Young Patriots, a group of mostly poor whites from Appalachia that had come to the Chicago area looking for work.
So, community organizer, leader, I think he's a natural leader that's obvious from everything up through his childhood, and he's very good with
bringing people together.
Right,
literally.
Bringing these disparate groups together. The Rainbow Coalition basically strived for the exact same things as the Black Panther Party, but it was a larger coalition brought together of multiple groups. So that brings us to police and FBI efforts to dismantle the Chicago Black Panther Party, of which there are many. On July 10th, 1968, it was alleged that Fred Hampton assaulted a Good Humor ice cream driver, stole $71 worth of ice cream from the truck, and distributed it to local children, a charge that Hampton denied. Hampton claimed that he arrived just as the ice cream truck was leaving, an account that was corroborated by multiple witnesses. The ice cream driver identified Hampton as the person who assaulted him. Hampton would then be found guilty of this charge, and during most of what we're talking about was awaiting an appeal.
Another instance is when a former Panther claimed that the night before the Chicago free breakfast program we talked about earlier was supposed to begin, the Chicago police broke into the church where the Panthers had the food and smashed and mashed up all the food and then urinated on it. It delayed the program and caused significant outrage throughout the community. But luckily for the community and not luckily for the police department, as the story grew, so did the local community support.
That moves us to June 4th, 1969. The FBI raided the Chicago offices of the Black Panthers, arresting 8 members of the party. The FBI announced to the public that they had found several weapons and ammunition, but they did not violate any federal regulation. According to Bobby Rush, the FBI left behind more than $20,000 in damage, including confiscating a safe containing $3,000 that was intended for a new clinic, and even taking cereal meant for the free breakfast program. On July 31st, Chicago police raided the Black Panther Party office again, this time at 1:15 in the morning, following a rally that afternoon outside of the office. During this time, Hampton was in jail for the ice cream robbery charge, and it was 3 Black Panther Party members that engaged in a firefight with police for 35 minutes until the 3 ran out of ammunition. Police broke down the doors, stormed the office, beat the 3 men badly, and according to their accounts, used gasoline to set the second floor of the office on fire. The official police story was that a passing patrol car was shot at from inside the office, and that started the shootout, and the fire was triggered by tear gas canisters fired into the second-story windows.
Doesn't really make it better. Just gonna say that.
Well, random July 31st, let's just start shooting at police cars.
Well, and even then, though, I'm saying, like, okay, so you still caused the fire.
Then, early in the morning, on October 4th, the offices were raided a third time. It was essentially a repeat of the previous raid, where heavy amounts of gunfire were exchanged, fires were set inside the office, and food stores for the breakfast program were destroyed. 6 Black Panther Party members were arrested for attempted murder. And we finally come to the early pre-dawn hours of December 4th. 2 days before Fred Hampton was due to turn himself into police to serve his time after losing his appeal for the assault and robbery charges. Police and FBI conducted a massive raid on Hampton's home. I believe there were 14 squad cars. They had a warrant to search for weapons. Hampton, his pregnant fiancée, Deborah Johnson, I believe she's since changed her name to Akua Njeri, but because all of the accounts that I'm referencing use Deborah Johnson, I'm just going to stick with that to make it less confusing. And 7 other Black Panther Party members were inside the house. Most were asleep. One of the Black Panther Party leaders, Mark Clark, was guarding the front door, and according to an eyewitness account from one of the survivors, he was shot without warning by police, dying immediately and causing the shotgun that he was carrying to fire as he fell. A federal grand jury determined that the police fired between 82 and 99 shots, including into bedrooms, with many rounds being directed through a wall into the bed where Hampton and Johnson were laying. According to Johnson, she awoke during the initial gunfire and tried to rouse Hampton, who just slowly raised his head and then closed his eyes again. She could feel the bullets hitting the mattress, but was miraculously not shot. Hampton was hit in the shoulder before police entered the room. As she was being led out of the room with a gun to her belly, Johnson said she heard police say that Hampton was barely alive. She then heard 2 shots and another voice say, "He's good and dead now." And we have a picture of police officers removing Hampton's body, 2 of which are, well, I would say 3 of the 4 are clearly smiling as they are carrying away a dead body of someone who was literally sleeping in his own bed when police raided his home.
Just those good old boys, you know?
Yeah. Along with the assassination of Clark and Hampton, 4 other Black Panther Party members were injured in the raid, along with allegedly 2 police officers. And I say allegedly. The officers would claim that they were fired upon first and repeatedly throughout the raid. But independent investigations and forensic analysis would determine that only 1 shot was fired from inside the home, almost certainly coming from Clark after he was already dead. Police attempted to provide pictures of bullet holes from shots fired inside the home, which were later found to be nails, or pictures that were actually taken inside the home showing bullet holes from police shooting from outside.
Shut up. No way.
So that was the official story. Police were fired upon. They got into this massive
firefight with these radicals.
Radical, violent, militant Black Panther Party members, and Clark and Hampton just died in the crossfire. So what has come out since then? Well, no illegal firearms were found in the raid that was conducted to find illegal firearms. Charges against the Panther members who'd survived the raid were dismissed in 1970. Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan, who had directed the raid, was indicted for obstruction of justice in 1971, along with an assistant and 12 of the officers from the raid, but probably unsurprisingly, no convictions resulted in these charges.
I believe he was also getting primed to run for Chicago mayor at that time too, and this is what basically tanked his career.
Right, you are correct. And of course, internal police investigations found that there was no wrongdoing by any of the officers involved.
Of course.
It wasn't until federal documents were stolen from a suburban Philadelphia FBI office by anti-Vietnam War protesters in 1971, which helped to expose a massive FBI surveillance program called COINTELPRO, or a counterintelligence program.
Oh, I thought that was the thing I had in my laptop right now.
COINTELPRO inside. The information that came out exposed that the FBI sought to undermine and sabotage many social movements, including the Black Panther Party. It's the same trove of documents where it came out that the FBI was sending letters to Martin Luther King telling him to kill himself. It's that same investigation.
That may be a good main topic just on its own, too.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep that in the back pocket for another episode.
It was found that J. Edgar Hoover not only knew of Fred Hampton, but had placed him on his agitator index as a key militant leader. And to fill in some of the questions you may have had from this raid, it was also revealed that the head of security for the Chicago Black Panther Party and Fred Hampton's bodyguard, William O'Neill, was working as an FBI informant. He was recruited by the FBI while he was in prison to specifically infiltrate the Black Panther Party and help take it down. It was on O'Neill's alleged information that the search warrant used in the raid was obtained. So what were later to be found false accusation of illegal weapons being in Fred Hampton's home. O'Neill also provided the FBI a hand-drawn layout of Hampton's home, including the location of the bed that Hampton slept in, the same bed that police were firing through walls at during this raid. They knew exactly where it was. It is also believed, through a whole bunch of evidence that we're about to lay out, that O'Neill drugged Hampton the night before the raid, leading to the state that he was in during the raid. Remember, he barely picked up his head and then just went back to sleep. Hampton had actually fallen asleep while talking to his mother on the phone that night, according to Johnson, and an independent autopsy revealed sedatives in Hampton's system. There is a long history of court cases because of this. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it took forever in the court system. Not only the criminal cases that, eventually everything was dropped from the police, of course, but the civil rights lawsuits that followed this assassination were extremely drawn out. I will give you the end of it. In 1982, this raid happened in 1969. In 1982, the city of Chicago, Cook County, and the federal government agreed to a settlement. Each would pay, so each individual entity, $616,333, the current equivalent to about $1.9 million per person, to a group of 9 plaintiffs, including the mothers of Hampton and Clark, and that is believed to be the largest ever award in a civil rights case. So that is the story of how the Cook County Police and the FBI
assassinated Fred Hampton.
Correct. And took down the leadership of the Chicago Black Panther Party and were never held accountable for it.
And again, man, you hear stories like this over and over again. Granted, I gotta make it very clear, I was not taught about this. And when you listen to this type of story and hear what's actually happened in our history, my first thought was immediately anger because I didn't know this before. I knew of Fred Hampton. I know about the Black Panther Party. I knew that he was killed. I didn't know the details though. And I didn't know about Fred Hampton's life. And the fact that I didn't already know that makes me very upset.
And he was only 21 years old.
Right.
But the government was so scared of any black leadership at this time. This is post the murders of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. That's where there's a film, I haven't watched it yet, just came out a couple years ago, Jesus and the Black Messiah. And that is about Fred Hampton. And that's Black Messiah, I believe, comes from a quote of the government not wanting there to be another Black Messiah after Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And they basically targeted Fred Hampton because they thought that he could be that leader.
It's scary, man. It's legitimately scary.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about this. It's not...
Well, I think the thing to say is that we need to teach this more. That's the thing. I know we keep going over this over and over and over again, especially during episodes like this. This is what people are trying to erase from our history. When we talk about debates over CRT and DEI in the classroom and stuff like that, and how the history lessons is making white students feel bad, this is the history that gets erased. And we should be furious that either people are too ignorant to understand what they're actually doing and the damage they're causing, or B, know what they're doing and are intentionally suppressing Black history like this.
And it does expose the lie that you hear from people like Donald Trump when they talk about the FBI and the deep state supporting leftist movements and going against proud conservatives. That it's such nonsense. The idea that January 6th was coordinated by the FBI in an effort to take down the patriots that were supporting Donald Trump. The FBI is and always has been a right-wing organization. They have destroyed every credible socialist movement in our country. And that is exactly what happened here. So it always makes me just very angry when you hear that thrown out. And these people have no idea of this history. They don't understand that the FBI tried to get Martin Luther King Jr. to kill himself.
Right.
That they went into the home of Fred Hampton and shot him in the head because they were so worried about his leftist message, that he was organizing not only Black Americans, but poor whites and Puerto Ricans and other disparate groups in Chicago to organize under the banner of wanting equality, real equality,
freedom.
In America.
Literally, what was number one? Freedom.
And they had to silence that because it scared them, because they were upholding the capitalist system.
And that's, I think, something that should always be remembered when you hear today's conservatives and right-wingers talk about how we just want freedom for people and how they try to frame it as things, because it's not how it is. More than anything else, they want to preserve the capitalistic status quo. And again, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a hardcore, crazy, we need to seize everything, whatever it is. But it is disgusting to see the amount of reframing of our own history to make it fit a more capitalistic agenda.
And we will be taking next week off, so we will see you again in 2 weeks.
I've got some Democratic candidates to train, so I'll be busy. See you in 2 weeks, everybody. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively.
We have to go from this to this.
Yes, you will.
Oh, God.
To honor Black History Month.
So now we move from Marvel's Black Panther.
No.
R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman.
And there's your outtake.